As a lifelong Falcons fan, this was a tough one. And like I've said on this podcast, welcome back to Joe Patrick on Football. Try to do as good of a job as I can reporting the news, what's being said at the training facility, what happens here at the games, what's being said in the locker room. But this is an emotional one. This is one of the hardest games to have to watch. A Falcons team that finally was clicking on offense after we had not really seen them be able to muster anything close to what they did in the first half today. We're looking really good, up 21-7, I believe, at halftime. Maybe it was 21-10, either way. Offense was looking great, and then all of a sudden, it all falls apart in the second half, and the Falcons lose to the Carolina Panthers 27-30 here in overtime. And not only did they lose this game, there's a lot more fallout that could happen after this loss, where it was already speculated that Raheem Morris's tenure as Falcons head coach could be on the line in this game. I had kind of been thinking that it was also on the line, but only if the loss was particularly bad. And of course, every loss in the NFL, especially when you're in the state the Falcons are in right now, feels bad. This is not what I had in mind when I was thinking about a potential result that could end in Raheem Morris's firing. I was thinking something more along the lines of what happened in Week 3, where you have a team that comes out and doesn't look like it's really playing for its coach, et cetera, et cetera. That's not what we saw today. I mean, this team was fighting very hard, but ultimately it was an embarrassing loss in the way that they blew the lead that they had built in that first half. And not only are we going to talk about Raheem Morris, but also there's more kind of fallout from this game with regards to Michael Penix, who left in the third quarter with an injury. We'll talk about that, his left knee. And then as well as Drake London leaves right before overtime, I'm sorry. He finishes out the final drive of regulation. But, who knows what that injury looks like. I will tell you that I did see him walking around inside the locker room. He was chatting with Kyle Pitts and some other people. Didn't even notice a limp in particular. So I would say that if there was a fear of some catastrophic injury, that probably is not the case, but I don't want to speculate too much about what the injury can be, because obviously you can have a pretty significant injury and be walking around standing on it. Michael Penix, by the way, we talked about his knee. Obviously has a long history of knee injuries in college. He was standing on the sideline. People here at the game would have seen him. He was on the bench for a while, but then was standing up at times on the sideline. So anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But obviously the big topic that everybody's going to be talking about after this game is what is the fate of Raheem Morris after, again, not only blowing the lead they blew. This ties Carolina's season high in points at 30. Obviously it comes in overtime, but still it's their season high, ties their season high in points, which they did against Dallas, and they also did against Atlanta the first time. So that's never good. Also gave up a career number to Bryce Young, 448 yards. That's a Carolina record. Carolina had 6 different receivers who had at least a 20-plus yard reception. Just ugly numbers basically across the board for the Falcons, for as promising as things looked in the first half. And so what do we have as evidence for, when the Falcons do find it necessary to fire a coach? Last time we saw it happen was after Arthur Smith went 7-10 in his final season as head coach, where Arthur Blank came out that training camp and said, we think this is a team, I'm just paraphrasing him here, but we think this is a playoff team. We think this is a team that's ready to win after this kind of 3-year cycle that we've been on. And, the 7-10 record at the end of the year was obviously not what they were looking for. They never had a losing streak this bad, though, at 5 games. Last time we saw the Falcons have a 5-game losing streak, well, it wasn't the last time they lost 5 consecutive games, but Dan Quinn, the coach prior to Arthur Smith, was fired after the team lost their opening 5 games of the season to start 0-5. Dan Quinn was then fired. Raheem Morris was inserted as the interim head coach. And by the way, they then fired the special teams coordinator the next day too. So there are some interesting parallels between what happened in that 2020 season and what's kind of happening now. And, who knows, maybe special teams coordinators just take the fall in some of these respects. But obviously, when special teams are going poorly, that's kind of the sign of a team that's just generally not firing on all cylinders. Rarely do you see, quality football teams that have quality coaching struggle as much on special teams as the Falcons are right now. So that's kind of the history. And the other kind of interesting historical connection to this is that happened after a home loss to the Carolina Panthers. That was Dan Quinn's fifth loss in a row. And obviously Raheem Morris finds himself now in a similar situation. Just observing him post-game, I think that he knows that this is potentially on the line. I think the biggest question mark, and when this, if it doesn't happen immediately, and by the way, it's worth noting that when I came up from the locker room, I was actually kind of going into the lobby area, and some Carolina reporters were coming in as I was doing that, and they remarked to somebody, they said, any firing happened yet? Because I think they're all expecting it to happen. So certainly it's not just people here in Atlanta. It is people from around the league think that, this is likely going to happen. I think it's at this point it's a question of when, because this team is now not going to make the playoffs. They are at 3-7, way down in third place in this division. They could, they're going to fight to stay off the bottom of the NFC South for the remainder of the season against the New Orleans Saints. The Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers will battle for first place. And so this is, as disappointing. I would say it's actually more of a disappointment of a season than the final Arthur Smith season was. I'm not trying to say that wasn't disappointing, but you didn't have a quarterback that season. You had Desmond Ridder, and Taylor Heineke. That was the kind of first iteration of a rebuilt Falcons team after a pretty complete teardown in 2022, where Arthur Smith pretty objectively overperformed at going 7-10 with that 2022 team. So, Raheem Morris has not gotten this team to a winning record since he's been in charge. I guess that's not quite official yet, but at 3-7, it looks highly unlikely they're going to finish with a winning record again this year. That would make it 8 straight seasons without a winning record, and that's just obviously not the kind of record that is going to keep a head coach employed at his job. The question is going to be whether a firing makes sense for the team right now. Like I said, I think that the relieving Raheem Morris of his duties likely inevitable at this point, but it's just a matter of, is Michael Penix best served by shaking things up at this point? Do other coaches go with Raheem? Like, if you're firing Raheem, are you also letting go of Zach Robinson, who people have had a lot of complaints about? And certainly this offense has not clicked nearly to the degree that it did even last year under Kirk Cousins, where things obviously fell off at a certain point, where he later revealed that he had suffered an injury. But this offense should be better than what it is. And so how many changes will the organization make? And at what point do the trade-offs kind of become a little bit moot, and you start to think about the optics of what projects us as an organization that deeply cares about winning and will not stand for the kind of football that we're seeing so far this season? I think these are the kinds of conversations that are going to be happening behind the scenes at the higher levels of the Falcons' decision makers as to what ultimately happens here. But I think it's pretty clear at this point that this team is not going anywhere this year, and that is extremely, extremely unfortunate. You could sense it from talking to the players inside the locker room too, just hearing from them. Bijan Robinson talking about how we have to kind of enjoy ourselves when we play, and it seemed the way he was talking made it seem like that was not necessarily happening. And it's understandable why it wouldn't when the team is struggling so much, but. Ultimately it is, we talk about it being a child's game, and when you're winning, when you're playing well, when you're confident, when you feel like you can go out and perform to the level that you expect of yourself, then football becomes a lot more enjoyable to go out there and play, and it just doesn't feel like it is that for a lot of these players right now. Talked to Chris Lindstrom after the game as well, and he kind of echoed some of these sentiments, just saying that, the NFL is, you are what you are, what your record says you are. Everything is earned. There's nothing given in this league, and ultimately the Falcons have not done enough. It's worth noting that Chris Lindstrom, I did notice he had a walking boot on his injured foot. He's really, really pushing through a lot of stuff to be able to play these last couple of weeks. So it's a testament to him. But ultimately, you almost feel bad for players who are really kind of putting their bodies on the line and pushing through injuries on this team that is not going anywhere, and I don't want to speculate about what that means for them going forward, but it's just not a good situation. I mean, it never is when you're 3-7. Let's be perfectly honest. This is just the worst. Michael Penix. Let's talk more about the injuries. He leaves late in the game, late in the third quarter. Basically, Kirk Cousins takes over. the fourth quarter for this team and doesn't really do a whole lot. Kirk Cousins did attend the podium after the game to speak to the media as the kind of quarterback representative. Is worth noting that Raheem Morris said that when they get back to work next week, Kirk Cousins will work with Zach Robinson. He kind of said that and then said, and then it also depends on, what Mike's able to do after he talks to medical. But it sounded like when we heard from Raheem, there was an expectation that Michael Penix is probably going to be out a little bit. And again, I don't want to get too carried away with that because there's a little bit of speculation there. They're not going to give an injury update on him. They're not even going to do it tomorrow. They never do. That'll all come Wednesday. We'll learn more about the extent of the injury and how long he might be out for. And basically what we're going to learn at that point is it's either he's day to day, which means he's week to week, or he's week to week, which means he's going to be out for several weeks, and then we'll see. That's how you translate Raheem Morris. But ultimately, this offense was not the same once he left. Kirk Cousins, for whatever reason, this offense just functions differently without him. It is worth noting, I feel like the Falcons probably matched their under center plays that they've run all season with Michael Penix in one quarter of Kirk Cousins here. And it's not that he was under center every single time. He still played in pistol a bunch, but they did mix in some under center stuff, which leads one to logically believe that one of the reasons they don't run under center is related to Michael Penix somehow, whether that's a physical issue, whether that's just like his comfort and what he's done previously in his career, whatever that is. And we can dig more into that with some of the coaches as the season goes on, assuming they're still around. But just something I'm noticing here. So what this team does without Michael Penix, who knows? This is supposed to be the quote-unquote easy portion of their schedule, and I don't care what portion of the schedule you're talking about with this Falcons team. None of it's easy because other teams are looking at the Falcons and saying, that's an easy game right now. Certainly Bryce Young felt that way again. We talked about it earlier, but a record-setting 448 yards, 6 different receivers with 20-plus yard catches. This is despite the fact that he was sacked 5 times in this game. Multiple instances where he was attended by trainers on the field down injured, just kept pushing through it. And ultimately, this Falcons team was outpossessed 37-27, out Atlanted, I should say, in Raheem Morris' words. Something that he has urged wants to kind of be the identity of this Falcons offense, and they just have never been able to really accomplish that, especially on a consistent basis. If anything, they consistently get outpossessed. Through my notepad, I'm so frustrated. 37-27 in time of possession. Carolina Panthers ran 75 offensive plays to the Falcons 58. 58 plays is not a whole lot. Carolina was 9 for 22 on 3rd and 4th downs, while the Falcons were 4 of 11, which is actually a huge improvement, but still not where you want to be if you're the Falcons. And one of the reasons why they kept on having to punt the ball away, and they lost that time possession game. And it happened in overtime too. The Carolina Panthers win the toss. They elect to kick, as someone with proper game theory would do, given the rules of the NFL. And the Falcons go 3 and out, punt it away, and then it was basically all over from there. Tommy Tremble has a huge catch and run and into field goal range, and Carolina ultimately seals it up. So there's going to be a lot of fallout from this game. Like I said, stay tuned to 92.9 The Game all day on Monday. Please call in whenever they open up the phone lines for calls and get your voice, have your voices heard by the guys at 92.9. I'm sure all the shows at some point will take some phone calls and want to hear from all of you. But I know that you all are probably feeling the way I am, which is just disappointed beyond what words can come to my brain right now. But it's really sad. It's really sad. All the talent that is on this team right now. I mean, Drake London has a monster day today. Again, leaves with that injury late, but hopefully it's not too bad. But again, it reminds you of the talent that is on this team. Bijan Robinson, we saw him also kind of bounce back a little bit today, had some bigger plays, but ultimately it's not enough. And it's just really frustrating that you have all this talent, these incredible top 10 picks that you've amassed over the years, and you're just not really having anything to show for it. It's very frustrating. And the Falcons were shorthanded today. They were down three corners basically, and that's one of the reasons we saw some of the UDFAs playing. It's probably one of the reasons why we saw Bryce Young have the day that he did, was that you had a lot of youth and inexperience there. But ultimately, it shines a light on a vulnerability that the Falcons have, which is just they don't have a lot of that depth. And whether you want to put that on Terry Fontenot for not drafting the right players that are able to fulfill that depth, whether it's development, coaching, whatever it is, it's just not good enough for the Falcons right now, and that's why it's left them with a 3-7 record through 10 games this season. So we're going to get out of here. We'll leave it there. Please leave your comments, whatever you're feeling about the Falcons, in the comments section below. I really appreciate you guys engaging with the show. And if you'd like to follow us on YouTube, you can watch the show on 92.9 The Game's YouTube channel. If you want to listen to us on the go on a podcast form, just search Joe Patrick on football, wherever you get your podcasts. And you want to see more of these podcasts pop into your YouTube feed, just click that like button, and the YouTube algorithm will know that you want to see more Falcon stuff. And not the bonus benefit is when you do that, we're probably coded in there. It's like sports, Falcons, et cetera, et cetera. So not only will you see me, you'll see all the other Falcons content creators on there as well, giving you the takes, giving you their thoughts, and it's all worth taking in at this point in time. So thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you soon.